Just when you thought the pandemic was over, he's back. Pandemic P shows up last night in Utah. And really bailed the Jazz out of one of the worst starts I've ever seen to a playoff game. And when you start like that at home, it's even worse at home, right? Because the silence of the crowd adds to the pressure of the misses. On the road, they're cheering your misses. And so I think what it does is it silences the monkey mind. When you're a shooter, when you're a hooper, when you're an athlete, when you're a performer, when you're struggling, the monkey mind is heavily involved usually, unless it's some sort of like physical thing that's going on, right? But a lot of the time, especially with shooting, it's the monkey mind. Now you're thinking, you're in your own head, right? You're in your head about the shot. And the silence really feeds the monkey mind. So that to me, when you start off cold at home, the silence can be deafening. But even after such a bad start, the end of the first quarter, you look up and they're only down 7. I don't know how many times I've said that in the last 2 seasons just watching basketball. That's the trend, right? Is we see this. It seems like every game a team jumps out 10, 12, 15. And then the first quarter comes to an end and you look and you go, wait, it's a 5-point game? What? That's just the ebbs and flows of today's game with the offense, right? Listening to Ty Lue between the quarters, does he sound like a leader of men to you? When I hear him do those in-game interviews, I always feel like he's going to finish the interview by saying like, would you like fries with that? Nah, man, I'm giving Ty a hard time here. By all accounts, he's a no-nonsense, tell it like it is dude. He sounds very soft-spoken, right? Like almost overly polite. But you know what? I liked him digging into his bench last night. I think he understood that they were drained from that game 7 and he was going to need a little more hands on deck. Loved seeing Boogie out there. I forgot they had Boogie, and he looks like he could give them spot minutes. He hit a 3, threw a couple bows, right? I could see using him, either the first 2 minutes of a quarter or even the last 2 minutes just to change things up, change the physicality and run some pick and pop stuff for him to pull Gobert out of the paint. Nice little card up their sleeve. I forgot he was there. Remember the premise a few episodes ago? Timing is everything. How salty have the Clipper fans been about Luke Kennard's contract, right? It's a soft spot. Like, you better not even bring it up to a Clipper fan. But if he's going to give you this when it matters, isn't all forgiven? If he's what Draymond calls a 16-game player, then he's worth his contract. Never mind what he didn't contribute during the regular season. I put some of that on Ty Lue and his infatuation with Reggie Jackson, but that's a story for another time. Again, right now, when it matters, Luke Kennard is giving you what you need. I'd love to see him add a money dance whenever he hits a big shot, kind of to allude to the contract situation. I know it never happened, but could you imagine Kennard hitting a big shot in the playoffs and rubbing his fingers together like, show me the money? Or, the money dispenser move, the make it rain gesture? That would immediately become the best celebration in the game, contextually. That would be amazing. But yeah, no, Kennard, 18 off the bench. And I think it was even more important when you consider Reggie Jackson, as good as he's been for them, he looks chipped up. You see him kind of hanging behind plays, holding, I don't know if it's a shoulder. I don't know what they're reporting, but he doesn't seem right physically. And he had a quiet night for them. And you know how much they've relied on him, right? So for Kennard to kind of fill some of that void is huge. But, watching Reggie Jackson with this team and the chemistry, the fit, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Mo Spates joined the Warriors. He just found a perfect role. It was the perfect situation to take advantage of his skill set. Now, obviously, Reggie's a guard, right? But I think it's the similar impact where for whatever reason, personality-wise, the chemistry of the team, it's just brought out the best in Reggie Jackson. So we'll see how his health holds up. So the Jazz hold on and scrap their way back from the miserable shooting start on the back of Donovan Mitchell. I think one of Donovan's best traits is his leadership. He's still young. I've seen him do some immature stuff, and I think sometimes he still does try to play too much hero ball. But you can see the base, because you can't teach someone to be a leader, right? You can become a better one, but if you're not a leader, you're not a leader. And there's no better example than the Clippers, right? But Donovan Mitchell's belief and his toughness to lead this team, I think it was on display last night. Again, bouncing back from that tough start. I'd argue he's already a better leader than Kawhi or Paul George. I guess that's probably not saying much, you know, when you break it down. And then I'm watching him take over late. His burst off the screen when he hangs that dribble, it's elite. It might be the most explosive in the league. I don't know. De'Aaron Fox, Ja Morant, they're quicker for sure, right? But as far as like force and burst, because even if you're there, he's most likely going to blow through you. And then when he decides to split the pick and roll with that throw ahead dribble and he gets to planting off 2 feet with all that momentum, that's one of the more spectacular things that's going on in the league today. But it's not just that, right? Because we can talk about the shooting and how that's been much improved. Still don't like how much he elevates on that 3-ball. I think that's asking for trouble as the playoffs extend. My guy was asking me on Twitter, what about D. Mitch's legs? We'll see. I think that you consider, I think the one positive of him missing that month with the ankle is his legs, now that he gets healthier, are going to be fresher than most of these other guys because he had a month off going into the playoffs. So that's something that I haven't thought of until I thought of it just now. But the other aspect of him in the pick and roll action is when he drags and he stretches the coverage out. So he comes off the screen, instead of immediately getting downhill, he kind of moves laterally to pull the coverage apart to turn the corner. The thing is, with his strength and his frame, he doesn't really need to turn the corner all the way, right? He can kind of just go through your body, where his peers, a lot of his peers, the Trae Youngs, the Ja Morants, the De'Aaron Foxes, they don't have that strength. They've got to actually turn the corner. Donovan Mitchell, not so much because of that big body, that football frame. And you saw him abuse Kennard in that pick and roll coverage late because at that point, Reggie Jackson had fouled out and Lou was down to what he was down to. I don't think he would have had Kennard out there at that point. No doubt the Clippers, with that quick turnaround, they ran out of gas. But such is life, right? This is the playoffs. You shouldn't have let that first series go to 7. So I no excuses for that. It still doesn't take away from the fact that both Paul George and Kawhi got tight and shied away from the moment. Paul George wanted no parts of that shot. Kawhi, you could argue that would have been a bad shot. I don't know, man. I mean, could have tried to draw the foul. And then people are talking about, well, why didn't they use their timeout? I understand pushing the ball into the front court to see what happens initially, but I think after PG puckered up, Kawhi probably should have called it, which brings me to, have you noticed players don't call timeouts anymore? Like, that's no longer a thing, right? Unless it's like a scramble on the floor or somebody's falling out of bounds, you almost never see a player make the decision to take a timeout. I'm wondering if that's just another AAU effect. I don't know. But it's something the Warriors this season struggled with late in games, where I would have loved to just seen Draymond or Steph say, hey, no, timeout. Never mind if Kerr wants it. Fuck that. Call the timeout. And so, yeah, Ty Lue didn't want it. Kawhi probably should have used it in that situation. Instead, he swings it to Morris in the corner, and Rudy Gobert gets his signature playoff moment. Just smothered the shit out of him to seal the deal. I got a confession, too. I like Rudy. I like Rudy Gobert, man. His goofy attitude, his French fire, it cracks me up, man. It cracks me up. Like, don't get it twisted. I don't really root for Rudy. I'm not taking it that far. I'm just saying I think he kind of gets a bad rap. Like, I enjoy watching Rudy play. I enjoy his temper tantrums. I enjoy when he's feeling himself and he gets a dunk. I enjoy when he's frustrated. Like, he's an entertaining dude, and I like that he's unafraid to be himself, even through the COVID fiasco. And so Utah, do you want to say steals that game? I don't know. I don't think they stole it. I think the Clippers missed out on an opportunity. With that cold start, you're probably not going to get an opportunity like that again, especially in Utah in this series. I wanted to shout something out. D. Wade, as you see, is courtside now that he has become a part owner of this Jazz team. When I heard that news, initially I thought like, yo, that is bizarre. That is the strangest fit I could think of for D Wade. You're gonna buy into the Utah Jazz? But then I thought about it and it was like, well, that's dope because this is how you make real change. There was a play towards the end of the game where there was a loose ball and a scramble and Paul George went running into the baseline into the crowd. And I think he popped a fan, or there was physical contact. He was running. He was trying to save the ball. And he reached back like 2 times. He was like, hey, my bad. I'm sorry. Like, are you okay? And the guy was like, yeah. It was just a real brief moment. And I was like, cool. Because of the issues we've had with fans lately, and then in Utah, to be honest with you, because they were giving him the treatment. This was after they were saying pandemic P at the free throw line, mind you. So back to Wade and the ownership in Utah and how this is how ultimately you make real change. Because if D Wade buys into the Miami Heat, the Memphis Grizzlies, or any other city that is much more culturally diverse and progressive, who cares? What changed? It doesn't really, cool. I don't think it changes much. But him doing this in Utah, I don't know, man. I think there's an opportunity to not only just change the optics of the crowds in Utah and what that organization represents in that city, but just the kids and the fans. Like, you see D Wade and his family there courtside and representing that. I just think it's dope. I think it's a dope situation, and it hasn't gotten enough attention. Shouts out to D Wade for continuing to kind of go against the grain and think outside of the box. And I'm enjoying seeing him and Mitchell in this connection and establishing it in none other than Utah.